Rangers may have had more success than Celtic in European competition on the field this season, but when it comes to financially, Celtic were once again number one. Welcome back, guys, to Fog Football. We have an interesting report this morning from the National Scot. They have done a breakdown of both the old firm's earnings in the Champions League and the Europa League respectively. However, when compared with each other, Celtic's total amount earned in Europe this season absolutely dwarfs Rangers', despite Rangers going further in Europe, playing more matches in Europe and winning more matches in Europe. So a quick breakdown here. Rangers played 14 games. They won 5, drew 4, and they lost 5. So, I mean, Rangers, as we know, did earn more coefficient points than Celtic, but that doesn't necessarily translate into more money. Celtic, on the other hand, played 10 games, which was 4 games less than Rangers. They won 3 matches, which was 2 wins less than Rangers. They drew 4, which was the same amount as Rangers, and they lost 3, which, again, is 2 less than Rangers. So Celtic had 2 less wins than Rangers and 2 less losses than Rangers. But when you look at the numbers, Celtic earned a hell of a lot more than Rangers did. So the Parkhead Club qualified for the knockout playoff round of the Champions League this season, while Rangers made it to the quarter-finals of the Europa League. However, due to playing in the Champions League, Celtic's earnings far exceeded that of their Glasgow rivals who progressed deeper into the Europa League. So before a ball was kicked, Celtic reportedly earned €18.62 million for participating in the league phase of the Champions League, whereas Rangers banked approximately €4.3 million for playing in the league phase of the Europa League. So we're talking more than €14 million before a ball was even kicked. So before the teams even participate and pick up wins, Celtic are earning 14 million more than Rangers in Europe. Now, some people would say that's a lot of money. Some people would say that the gulf is perhaps too big between the competitions. Similar to how people say that about in Scotland, and the money that people get in Scotland for the lower divisions is way less than the Premiership. And while I can definitely agree to that to some extent, I think we need to remember here that the Champions League is the elite European competition. So therefore, you should get more money. You should earn more money for qualifying for that. You should earn more money for winning games in that competition. That's natural. That's what you want. It wouldn't make any sense if you could earn the same amount of money if you qualified for Europa League than you would the Champions League. If that was the case, then being in the Champions League wouldn't even be that big a deal. But is 14 million too much before a ball's even kicked? I don't know. You guys can decide that. Now, in terms of win and draw bonuses, for beating Bratislava, RB Leipzig and Young Boys, and drawn against Atalanta, Club Brugge and Dynamo, Celtic earned €8.4 million, whereas Rangers beat Malmo, Bucharest, Nice and Union Saint-Gilloise, and drew with Olympiacos and Tottenham to earn €2.1 million. So Rangers earning €6 million less than Celtic in their results, despite actually winning more games in the league phase. Celtic earned €4.4 million for their placing in the league phase, 21st, with qualifications to the knockout playoff round, where they lost to Bayern Munich. That got an extra $1 million for that as well. Rangers finished in the top 8 in the league phase, and that got them $2.175 million for their ranking. Plus, they got $600k for dodging the playoff round and advancing straight to the round of 16. So Celtic earned $4.4 million for finishing 21st. Rangers earned $2.1 million for finishing in the top 8. So again, Celtic getting more than double the amount Rangers got for finishing 21st, despite Rangers finishing in the top 8 and going straight into the last 16, which again just shows you how important it is to qualify for the Champions League. And I think that while Celtic constantly, as soon as they continue to, if they continue to win the league in Scotland, then they're always going to be the best team, because you're looking at the money gulf here and the difference in finances, and it is It's incredible. I mean, you look at the coefficient. We always talk about the coefficient cup. Yeah, the coefficient shows that you can perhaps have a better coefficient season in the Europa League, but in terms of financially, it's pretty impossible. I think Rangers would probably need to win the Europa League to try and get anywhere near Celtic financially. If Celtic had a poor season in the Champions League, Rangers would probably need to win the Europa League just to make more money. And I guess that's how it should work in these two European competitions. But we know then Rangers were knocked out. But in total, Celtic for their Champions League earnings got 32.42 million, and Rangers got 13.435 million. So that is 16 million more that Celtic got, which is incredible when you break it down. So that's mental, absolutely mental there. So it's a lot of money, £16 million. That's like, I mean, that's like two quality Scotland. That's like two quality players in the Scottish League. Make no mistake about it. Look at Carter Vickers. He cost £7. It's like getting two Carter Vickers with £2 million left. So just goes to show that's a shitload of money, and that's just through Europe for one season. It's a lot. It's a lot. So I mean, just a little breakdown there of the Europa and the Champions League earnings for both Celtic and Rangers, and that's why it's so important to win the league. And if you don't win the league, then that's why it's so important to at least qualify, because obviously as it stands in Scotland, if you finish second, you can still qualify your way into the Champions League. And I mean, if you look at this from a financial perspective, I don't think 1 year is going to make a big difference. If Celtic missed out in the Champions League for 1 year, probably wouldn't matter that much in terms of the gap being closed. But I think for Rangers to try and get back to the top of Scottish football, they're going to need to either get in the Champions League consecutively or hope that Celtic fall out of the Champions League consecutively. Now, who knows going into next season? Both teams have to qualify. Celtic have only one tie, Rangers will have 3. But we could see a scenario where once again Celtic are in the Champions League and Rangers are not. We could see a scenario where both teams are in the Champions League. We could see a scenario where Rangers are no teams are in the Champions League, or we could somehow see a crazy scenario where Rangers come through and win 3 ties and qualify, and Celtic lose their tie in the Champions League, the Champions phase, the Champions qualifying path, and are not in it, which would obviously be massive when you look at the financial aspect of it. So yeah, it should be interesting. Anyway, just wanted to share those figures there, guys. So let us know what you think down below in the comments. But even on a side note, if we take like Rangers out of the equation and we forget about the gap between first and second, let's look at the gap between Celtic and the rest of the teams. Look how massive that is. I mean, if Celtic are getting that kind of money, over 30 million euros every single season for participating in the Champions League, then how can people honestly sit around and expect the other teams in Scotland to compete with that? It's insane. We've heard arguments from dumb people saying, oh, all you need to do is sell out your stadium and you can compete, you can win league titles. If you backed your club more, if you went to the ground every game and blah, 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 or you bought some merchandise that is overpriced on the shop, then maybe your team could win the league. Maybe you could be winning titles every single season like Celtic, as if Celtic are, at the top of Scottish football because of their fans, and it's got nothing to do with the finances. I mean, a couple of extra 100 people, a couple of extra 1,000 people showing up at a stadium isn't going to make you 30 million euros a year. It's just not. Celtic are so far ahead of every other team right now. The gap between them and Rangers is big, but the gap between them and everybody else is absolutely huge. And it's not just a matter of our clubs need to be better supported, or our clubs need to, manage their teams better, or this or that. It's insane. The financial gulf is crazy, and it's just not. There's not one simple thing that can be done to overturn that. I mean, yeah, there's one thing. You could qualify for the Champions League for like 3 seasons in a row, but how can the teams do that? The teams are nowhere near that, and Scottish football is basically turned into a one-team league, so no one's going to qualify for the Champions League because Celtic are dominating it every single season. They're the team that's getting in the Champions League, and the longer this goes, the more years that pass by, the gap between Celtic and the other clubs is just going to get bigger. It's going to get bigger, and it's going to be more one-sided. and Celtic will continue to get in the Champions League, and they will continue to make all the money, and the gap between them and the other teams will continue to grow, and then people will come out with dumb comments and continue to say, well, you should have sold more tickets. If you sold 25 more tickets in your last game, you'd be able to compete for the Scottish title. It's like, that it doesn't work that way. You know, you just look at it's like a monopoly. If you look at the money here that the Celtic have, the money grab, you know, the stranglehold that they've got financially on Scottish football, it's insane compared to the other teams. You look at England, and Europe's not even that big of a deal because the English Premiership is, you know, there's big money in that, and all you really need to do in the English Premiership, and a lot of clubs have shown this over the past, 5 years and whatnot, in England, as long as you can get into the top flight, and if you can avoid getting relegated and you can stay in the top flight for a few seasons of staying in that league, you can stabilise yourself, and you can, you know, have money, and you can build a team. A lot of clubs have done it. In Scotland, that's not the case. You know, you can stay in... I mean, Aberdeen have never been relegated. And look how much money they have compared to Celtic. You know, staying in Scotland doesn't mean shit. It's all about... from a Scotland perspective, if you want to earn money, you need to be in Europe. And Celtic are always the team in Europe, and they're in the Champions League, and that pays the big money. So I just wanted to show that little, that report by the National of Scotland. I thought it was interesting. I didn't think the gap between the Champions League and the Europa League was actually that big. So it just shows you it's absolutely massive for Rangers to qualify for the Champions League, and it's going to be absolutely massive for Scottish clubs to start qualifying for the Europa and for the Europa Conference. They need to be in these competitions, even though they don't pay as much. You know, it's better than nothing. So you got to get in there and get in there every season. And I always said it. You look at when Scotland had the third spot and you had the third team guaranteed. It's been like that for 3 years. This will be the fourth year. Could you imagine if one team finished third in Scotland for the past 4 seasons in a row, and for 4 years in a row, they were the team that was getting the Europa Conference League group stage money, and the other teams below them weren't? That was an opportunity for one team in Scotland to truly cement themselves as the third best team, the real best of the rest. But, I mean, it hasn't happened. First season, Hearts got it. Next season, Aberdeen got it. Hearts got it back. And now this season, it looks like Hibernian's going to get it. So that's been a big wasted opportunity for one of those clubs to consecutively do that 4 years in a row and, you know, benefit, get the money in, and stretch themselves financially and run away from the other clubs around them, but nobody has taken opportunity of that. And, you know, that's one thing that could have potentially got somebody a little bit closer to the top two. Anyway, guys, that's it. Leave a comment down below. Till next time, peace.